Welcome to The Needle, your Division I college basketball podcast. I'm Jack Williams, owner and operator of D1CoachCorner.com, your source for college basketball news, rankings, and predictions. On this podcast, we will present to you weekly conversations on D1 college basketball coaches and their teams. Don't forget to go right now on your computer, phone, or tablet and follow us on Twitter. This episode of The Needle is brought to you by D1CoachCorner.com, your source for Division I college basketball coaching.
Thank you for tuning in to the 13th episode of The Needle. Again, my name is Jack Williams, owner and operator of D1CoachCorner.com, your source for college basketball news, rankings, and predictions. D1 Coach Corner is the number one source for college basketball preseason predictions and college basketball coach evaluations. The Needle College Basketball Podcast will bring to you 52 weeks of college basketball talk on topics dealing with Division I college basketball coaches and their teams. Today we will be updating our hot seat watch list to include some teams from last week's episode, which we talked about the bottom dwellers in the league. There are a couple of teams who have been at the bottom entirely too long, which we will discuss later on the show. We will also bring to you our new Coach Impact segment, which will highlight coaches who have recently taken over a team and has positively impacted the team as a result of him being there. And then we will get into our hot seat watch list portion of our show, which highlights coaches who have been with their teams for over 5 seasons, but hasn't yet produced a winning season or anything close to it, or a major Division I head coach who can't seem to get his team past the first round of the NCAA tournament. Well, we are approaching the end of the season for a lot of conferences, and I guarantee you that as soon as the season ends, we are going to see a lot of coaches get their pink slips. This season is very different from the previous season because we saw a good number of coaches fired in mid-season for a lot of different reasons, in which some of them had nothing to do with college basketball or their coaching skills. This year, we only had one major firing to occur mid-season that I'm aware of, and that was Coach Steve Alford of UCLA. Now, in our last hot seat episode, we included coaches such as Danny Manning of Wake Forest, who's not having a good season in the ACC. We had Marvin Menzies of UNLV, who's actually having a pretty good season. UNLV is currently 5th in the Mountain West. Not bad, but we decided to put Marvin Menzies on the hot seat watch list because he wasn't the first choice of this team, first of all, and he was hired by an athletic director who is no longer with the program. Like we've mentioned in that episode, this team is desperately looking to get out of the conference that they're currently in. UNLV believes that they can be a national contender. But can this coach do that for them? Coach Menzies believes that he could build this team over a period of time into a national contender. But what he doesn't understand is that he doesn't have a lot of time. The only way that UNLV can move over to one of the Power 6 conferences is to show that they can win and that they can move deep into the NCAA tournament consistently. For some odd reason, it doesn't feel that they're going to get that from Coach Marvin Menzies. We've also included Coach Steve Wojo of Marquette, who is in his 5th season at Marquette. Now, Marquette is actually having a pretty good season themselves in the Big East. They are currently in 2nd place and is predicted to be a possible 3rd seed in the tournament. But that doesn't put Coach Mojo out of the clear as of yet. He has to at least get this team to the Sweet 16 in order for his job to be secure. In my opinion, to have that good of a team and make an early exit in the tournament will probably get him fired. We'll see what happens in March. We also had Coach Jim Christian of Boston College on our hot seat watch list in episode 9. The reason we've had him on our hot seat watch list is because he's in his 5th season with the team and he hasn't yet had a winning season, nor has he led a team into the tournament. And I would doubt it if Boston College gives him a 6th season after 5 losing seasons. At some point, he's going to be shown the door. Now, those were the only 3 that we had out of the major conference, but we have more to add. Let's start with those who are currently winless in their conference: Bryce Drew of Vanderbilt and Wyking Jones of California. Now, out of these 2 guys, Bryce Drew has the greatest chance of being fired after the season. The reason is that Coach Drew is in his 3rd season in a major conference and he's about to go winless. Historically, Vanderbilt has never won less than 2 games in a conference competition since joining the SEC in 1932. Vanderbilt is going to be on the road 4 out of the next 6 games. To be honest with you, the 2 home games remaining of the season are actually winnable, because Arkansas and Florida aren't very strong programs in the SEC by far this year. Both of these teams have major flaws that can be exposed, but the chances for Vanderbilt to end the season with less than 3 wins are great. Now, as far as Wyking Jones is concerned, the 2017-2018 season marked the worst conference record in California's basketball program's history. and the 2018-2019 season has a chance to be worse than the 2017-2018 season. That's bad. For this reason, Coach Jones may not make it to 5 seasons. Now, we've also added Coach Mike Dunleavy Sr. Coach Mike Dunleavy's Tulane team is doing pretty badly this season. They are winless in the American Athletic Conference. Out of the 6 games left, 3 of these games will be played on the road. Tulane's best chances of winning will come either against East Carolina or Wichita State at home. Wichita State and East Carolina are not very good on the road. East Carolina is winless on the road, and Wichita State is 1-7 on the road thus far. But 3 seasons in 10th place or less may cause Coach Dunleavy to lose his job in the near future. We've also added Coach Terry Porter of Portland. As I mentioned before, Coach Porter is one of the good to great NBA players turned Division I college basketball coach that we've discussed in episode 11. We've discussed that good to great NBA players don't do well as Division I head coaches. Coach Porter is in his 3rd season at Portland and is winless with an 0-12 record. That's not what Portland had in mind when they hired Coach Porter. There's a good chance that he may not make it to the 4th season. We've also added Ernie Kent of Washington State. Like I said before, Coach Ernie Kent's record is somewhat similar to the previous coach, Coach Ken Bone, except that Coach Bone at least led the team to the semifinals of the NIT in 2011 and then to the CBI championship game the following year. Coach Kent hasn't led the team to any postseason tournaments, nor has he had a winning season as of yet. So the chance of him losing his job after the season ends rises to about 80%. Remember, you only have 5 seasons to make something happen. Another added, Coach Tim Miles of Nebraska. Coach Tim Miles is in his 7th season at Nebraska and has only 1 NCAA tournament appearance under his belt. However, Coach Miles has taken this team the furthest they have ever gone, to the 2nd round of the NCAA tournament. Nebraska has never made it further than that in its history. They missed the NCAA tournament last season but were selected to participate in the NIT, where they lost in the 1st round. The chances of Coach Miles getting fired is much smaller than those I've mentioned earlier, probably about 50%. The reason is because he has had some success with this team in his 7 seasons with them. So let's go back over the list to include the names that we had in the previous episode. This is who we have on our hot seat watch list. 1, Danny Manning of Wake Forest, who has a very good chance of losing his job after the season. Marvin Menzies of UNLV, medium. Steve Wojo of Marquette. We're just watching. He's having a good season. We're not saying that he's going to get fired, but we're just watching. Jim Christian of Boston College, who has a good chance. Bryce Drew of Vanderbilt, good chance. Wyking Jones of California, very good chance of getting fired. Mike Dunleavy Sr. of Tulane, very good chance. Terry Porter of Portland, very, very good chance. Tim Miles of Nebraska, medium. And for others, we have Coach Jim Fox of Appalachian State, who has a good chance of being fired. Coach Fox is in his 5th season at Appalachian State and hasn't yet produced a win season. Then we have Corey Williams of Stetson, who has a good chance of being fired. Coach Williams hasn't finished better than 7th place since taking over the team in 2014. Then we have Pat Duquette of UMass Lowell, who has a good chance. UMass Lowell hasn't had a winning season yet under Coach Pat Duquette. Then we have Tom Dempsey of Binghamton, somewhat a good chance. Coach Dempsey is in his 7th season without a winning season in the American East. Now, there's a total of 4 coaches in the league who hasn't been head coach of a team for over 5 seasons, but has only 1 win season under their belt, and we're watching them. And they are Coach Anthony Latina of Sacred Heart, who's in his 6th season, Coach Chris Casey of Niagara, who's in his 6th season, Coach Russ Peno of Central Arkansas, who's in his 5th season. But I must say that the chance of UCA moving Coach Peno is very low, due to the fact that he led UCA to their first Division I postseason tournament appearance since joining Division I in 2006. So we're going to say that one's kind of low. And 4th, we have Coach Murray Garvin of South Carolina State, who's in his 7th season. Somewhat of a good chance. And that's our new hot seat watch list for the month of February 2019. And so much for that. Now, let's look into some games played in Week 16 of college basketball to see which teams have moved the needle either up or down. On Sunday, February 17, 2019, St. John's looks to improve their chance to be selected into the NCAA tournament with a win over second-place Virginia. St. John's, Seton Hall, and Butler are all teams on the bubble in the Big East. Ohio State chances of getting into the tournament continues to fade with their road loss to Michigan State. The loss made Ohio State 2nd in a row. Still in the fight to make it into the tournament, Seton Hall defeats Creighton on the road to go 7-6. Seton Hall has a lot to do to make it into the tournament, but every win counts. On Monday, February 18, 2019, Virginia wins on the road against Virginia Tech. Virginia is also in the tight race to be crowned the regular season champs in the ACC. Virginia also looks to receive a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Kansas State pulls ahead of the pack in the Big 12 with its road win over a struggling Virginia Tech team. Kansas State is looking to win the Big 12 for the first time in school history. Kansas dominated the Big 12 season title championships for several years. TCU loses on the road against last place Oklahoma State. TCU desperately needed this win to put their hats in the bid for an NCAA tournament spot. On Tuesday, February 19, 2019, Kentucky pulls within 1 game ahead of Tennessee to take the SEC regular season conference title. Kentucky is also looking to improve its seeding in the NCAA tournament. The fight for the SEC regular season conference title gets even tighter with Tennessee's home win over a struggling Vanderbilt team. In the meanwhile, Vanderbilt moves to 0-12. Ouch! The race for the title gets even tighter in the Big 10 with Purdue's road win over Indiana. Indiana moves 1 game closer to earning the bottom-dwelling title in the Big 10. Maryland jumps in the Big 10 race for first place with its very close road win over Iowa. With only 4 games left to play before the season ends, Maryland moves within 1.5 games closer to the top of the Big 10. Drake, the shocker in the Missouri Valley Conference, wins over Bradley in the battle for first place with Loyola Chicago. Don't be surprised if Drake wins the Missouri Valley Conference tournament title. Can't wait to see that one in March. In the meanwhile, Texas A&M puts a damper in Alabama's hopes to getting into the tournament with a win over Alabama on Tuesday. Now on Wednesday, February 20, 2019, in a 3-way fight for first place in the ACC, North Carolina took advantage of Duke's team without Zion Williamson. Virginia, Duke, North Carolina are all tied for first place in the ACC. Marquette keeps a tight grip on first place in the Big East with a win over Butler. Florida fights hard to stay into the NCAA tournament hope with a good road win over a ranked LSU team. In the meanwhile, Mississippi State keeps its NCAA tournament hopes alive with a great road win over bottom-dwelling Georgia. Providence keeps St. John's questioning its NCAA tournament hopes with a home win over St. John's on Wednesday. On Thursday, February 21st, 2019, Cincinnati wins over UCF to keep the American Conference as a 2-bid conference. Also, Michigan wins a road game over Minnesota to keep the 3-way fight for first place going in the Big 10. On Saturday, February 23rd, 2019, happy birthday to my best friend Earl Powell in LA. There were a plethora of needle-moving games. Payback in Syracuse, but Barrett reminded them who the number 1 ranked freshman in the country was by dropping 30 on them. The fight for first place in the ACC stayed tight with Virginia winning a road game against Louisville. Kentucky and LSU keeps the race for first place tight in the SEC with their home wins. Kentucky defeated Auburn while LSU defeated Tennessee. TCU is still fighting hard to keep its NCAA tournament hopes alive with a win against a ranked Iowa State. With only 4 games remaining in the season, Kansas State gets closer to becoming the Big 12 regular season champs for the first time in school history. The stock rises for Coach Bruce Weber. Chasing the number 1 spot in the Big 10, Maryland defeated Iowa State at home. Texas NCAA tournament hopes are starting to look dim with a loss to Oklahoma. Temple keeps its tournament hopes alive with a home win over Tulsa. Florida stays in the NCAA tournament fight with its 4th win in a row. Florida beat Missouri at home on Saturday. Mississippi State and Alabama fights to keep their NCAA tournament hopes alive with their wins on Saturday. Mississippi State defeated South Carolina while Alabama defeated winless Vanderbilt. Now that concludes the needle-moving portion of our show. We will now move on to the new Coach Impact segment and the Hot Seat Watch List portion of our show. This portion of our show is brought to you by D1CoachCorner.com, your source for college basketball news, rankings, and prediction. Once again, don't forget to go follow us on Twitter after the show at D1CoachCorner. Before we get into the new Coach Impact and the Hot Seat Watch List segment of our show, we would like to send our prayers up to Coach Jim Boeheim of Syracuse, who was involved in an accident with a pedestrian that turned fatal. Having worked as a state trooper, I've seen plenty of death from accidents over my lifetime. But I come to realize that the more we travel these roads, the likelihood that we are going to get involved in some type of accident gets greater. but we refer to them as accidents for a reason, because the majority of our vehicle collisions are just that, accidents, nothing intentional or malice. We pray that Coach keeps his head up and continues to do what he does as a coach. Our heart also goes out to the victim and their family as well. We pray that the Lord is with them and that he helps them through their healing process. Moving on, we pray for a speedy recovery for Zion Williamson, who had a weird shoe accident at the beginning of the North Carolina game. Some pro basketball players are suggesting that he sit out the remainder of the season to protect his asset. Well, I'm pretty sure that his asset is already insured by some type of insurance, first of all. And second of all, I'm not a fan of most of these new NBA players anyway. I hope that Zion Williamson realizes that he's something special. And the most special thing about him is that dog and tenaciousness in him. The type of dog that we haven't seen since Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Westbrook. And if he returns to finish the season, the world will see him as just that, a tenacious, talented basketball player who's out to demolish his opponent just for the hell of it, and just because he knows that he's better than everyone else. Finishing the season to protect himself would just make him look like the rest of them. I'm just saying. Now back to our new coach impact and our hot seat watch list segment of the show. In this new coach impact segment, we'll be discussing coaches who have been head coach of a particular Division I basketball team for no more than 5 years and who are on the upward trend towards taking their team to another level. This week's New Coach Impact highlights Coach Darian Devries once again. Coach Devries has Drake in a tight race for first place with Loyola Chicago. What a surprise. Coach Devries is in his first season as head coach. It is not like Coach Devries had inherited a team that was already put together. He built this team from scratch. I'm pretty sure that some major programs are watching to see how Drake's season plays out. Now on to our Hot Seat Watch List segment. Our Hot Seat Watch List highlights Division I head coaches who have for the most part been with their team for more than 5 seasons but haven't yet produced a winning season or anything close to it, or a major Division I head coach who can't seem to get his team past the first round of the NCAA tournament. Not good. This week's Hot Seat Watch List highlights Coach Mike Dunleavy of Tulane, who is in his 3rd season as head coach there. Tulane is currently winless in the American with only 4 games remaining until the season ends. This may not turn out good for Coach Mike Dunleavy Sr. at the end of the season. That concludes our show for this week. Join us next week at the same time and channel for a new episode. We'll be happy to take your questions and comments on Twitter for our next episode. Our Twitter handle is at D1CoachCorner. That is at D1CoachCorner. See you next week.